A very good evening to one and all present and good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this special convocation organized in honor of 16th President of the New York University, Professor Andrew D. Hamilton. To begin this auspicious occasion, may I humbly invite Dr. Atul Chauhan, sir, Honorable Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, and President RBEF to declare the convocation open and also deliver his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
I hereby declare the special convocation open.
Thank you, sir. I now also call upon Honorable Group Vice Chancellor to present the esteemed recipient of the honorary doctoral degree.
Marut, I will just say a few words to welcome Professor Hamilton.
Please, sir.
Professor Hamilton, it is for everyone in the Amity community the greatest honor that you have given by accepting the honorary doctorate of our university. At this point, I have been informed that thousands of our scientists from Amity University campuses around the world are online to witness what you will speak to our fraternity. This is one of the greatest turnouts for any convocation speech. And Dr. Hamilton, I think it goes to show your legacy and your commitment to the area of science that so many people are passionately wanting to listen to you. As a university, over the last many years, we have been fortunate to be able to confer the honorary doctorate on many Nobel laureates, on presidents, prime ministers, Supreme Court justices, leading scientists, corporate world leaders. But today's evening, where we are conferring the honorary doctorate upon you, Professor Hamilton, is extremely special for us, because you are a person that embodies the vision that our founder, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, had about 30 years ago when he envisaged establishing the not-for-profit Amity Foundation. You are a great scientist who, even now at this stage, being the president of one of the greatest universities of the world, spends time in the labs furthering your scientific work. You are not only one of the greatest academic leaders that our world has, but most importantly, you are an incredibly humble, down-to-earth, and caring human being. And this was the vision that Dr. Chauhan had when he established Amity, to provide a platform to young people of not only our country, but of the world, to become great professionals, but imbibed with a foundation of values to take care of others and be kind to others. And when the word came within the Amity fraternity that you have accepted the honorary doctorate, I have received so many emails of stories of interactions of people with you. Just 5 minutes before I walked in here, I got an email from Dr. Nyogi, who is a very senior member of Amity. And he sent a photograph. We have many graduates of Oxford University. And he shared a photograph of him and his wife in New York with you. And he was recounting that you are one of the nicest people that he has ever met in his life. Motivating. When you meet people, you make them happy and you motivate them. That is an absolute unique aspect that you have, Professor Hamilton. To just give you a background about the Amity Foundation, our founder, Dr. Chauhan, as a great industrialist and entrepreneur in West Germany, about 30 years ago, decided that to give back as his duty to this world and initially to our country, what can he do? So he set up the not-for-profit Amity Foundation. And Professor Hamilton, what started about 30 years ago with 100 students in the Amity School has now grown to 185,000 students studying within Amity, across schools, across universities, in 15 countries around the world. And Dr. Chauhan always had the vision that the students and the scientists and the faculty members, what we call the Amity family, should all work together with one goal, that how can we make society better? How can we make this world a better place? And Professor Hamilton, you will be very happy to know that with this vision, many years ago, we sat down and we said, how can we contribute as a system of higher education to our country, India? And we realized what was most important was to be knowledge generators and the aspect of research. Over the last many years, we have been very privileged to attract some of the most brilliant scientists of our country and around the world who have contributed. And at this point, our university has filed the maximum number of patents, more than any other university. And Professor Hamilton, it is an honor for us that just 1 month back, the government of India, through their Minister of Commerce, honored the Amity University with the National Award for Research, which in the last 5-6 years was only given to the IITs. For the first time went to a private university, and that we give to our scientists who are online today. And that is why it is even more a joy for us that you have accepted this honorary doctorate, because our mission is to propagate science and research and technology and innovation. And we feel there is no better a person than you to motivate the young scientists and our senior scientists. And may I say that your acceptance of this doctorate will go a long way in pushing the mission and vision that our founder, Dr. Chauhan, has set for all of us. We are extremely grateful. And NYU also indirectly has some input in our global expansion. London was our first campus that we set up about 14 years ago internationally. And I still remember when we were looking for where to establish a campus, we were walking around the Bloomsbury area because that is the academic area. And of course, my time spent in London at the London School of Economics and University College London, one of the areas I used to spend a lot of time in. And while walking in Bedford Square, we came across a sign of NYU. And we took the courage and we knocked the door and we went inside. And the head of the campus, very fine gentleman and academician, he sat down and he explained to us how NYU has this beautiful premises in Bedford Square and is then also utilizing the facilities of Birkbeck College nearby. So this was many years ago, Professor Hamilton. And you will be happy to know that we were so motivated by that idea and inspired that we took the building next to the NYU campus in Bedford Square, and we were neighbors for many decades. We are still in Bedford Square, but we shifted to the other side. So this is how one can learn from best practices, and I'm sure we will hear some great vision from you, which will inspire us. So Dr. Hamilton, once again, thank you for the honor that you have given. And I will just, before we proceed, also request our additional president, Dr. Aseem Chauhan, who has spent many years working in New York, to also welcome you.
Yes. Maybe Marut. Should I go ahead, Marut? Would you like
Most
to?
welcome, sir. It will be an honor for us.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Great. Maybe we can just get the camera right. But Professor Hamilton, let me first of all echo the sentiment of Dr. Atul Chauhanji, who has rightfully spoken about you. We at Amity endeavor very often to bring people at various platforms to inspire our students, people who they can look up to and who are role models for them. Very rarely we find someone who inspires us so deeply and is a role model for academic and education administrators. And I think Dr. Gurinder Singh, our Group Vice Chancellor, who has been with the group now for more than 25 years, Dr. Balwinder Shukla, who has been with the group for more than 20 years as Vice Chancellor of this university, as well as all of the senior Vice Chancellors, administrators of Amity who are online today, will agree with me that when we see you, Professor Hamilton, we find someone who has every virtue and aspect that we respect, that we look up to, and we would love that all of our leaders emulate you and become more like you. To be the Vice Chancellor of Oxford University, and then the President of NYU, as you rightfully pointed out, two institutions of great excellence, but very different in their heritage, in their outlook, in their mission. To lead both and to do it so exceptionally requires someone who is truly superhuman. And Professor Hamilton, I think, if I may, your focus on institution building with a focus on student happiness, student outcome, taking care of people, and having such a long-term vision, this is something which we admire in you. Dr. Atul just gave this story about how we were inspired and followed the NYU campus in London. And if I can share that to come closer to you in New York, the Amity Foundation has picked up a 175-acre campus on Long Island, which was formerly the St. John's University campus. We are planning a global research hub to collaborate with the best minds in North America. And we're also bringing the Harrow School, which you very well know to be one of the very old, esteemed schools of the UK. We are bringing them to New York, to that campus as Harrow, New York, and we would invite you at the right time. It is not too far from you. So whenever you are in the Long Island in that direction, we would love to have you visit the campus. But we admire you. We have regard for you. We want to listen to you. And today I know how happy all of our colleagues across the Amity Group, listening from Singapore and Amsterdam and South Africa and Uzbekistan and San Francisco, all around the world, they've tuned in for this occasion when we can be here to listen to you and be with you. Thank you, Professor Hamilton.
Thank you very much, sirs. It was indeed heartening to listen to this wonderful welcoming address and also for your most generous compliments. Going further, may I now request Honorable Group Vice Chancellor, sir, to please present the recipient of the honorary doctoral degree.
Honorable Chancellor, sir, I present before you Professor Andrew Hamilton for honorary doctorate. From the citation, I read, in the presence of our Chancellor and in the presence of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Andrew D. Hamilton, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, with full honor, confers upon Professor Andrew D. Hamilton the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, for his exceptional vision, outstanding contribution, and deep commitment to research and education, propagation of knowledge, professionalism, and direction in pursuit of excellence, strategic vision, and inspirational leadership dedicated to the good of humanity. Professor Hamilton, a renowned scientist and eminent academician, is presently the president of prestigious New York University and former Vice Chancellor of University of Oxford. A great visionary researcher, a renowned educationist, a motivated academician, and a dynamic leader, he has also served as a provost of Yale University. A global icon of all-round success, Professor Andrew Hamilton has held numerous coveted positions and executed significant assignments of great recognition as a renowned educationist. His work explores supramolecular medicine, bioorganic chemistry, and chemical biology. A brilliant scholar throughout, he graduated with a first-class degree in Bachelor of Science and went to earn his PhD degree from St. John's College, Cambridge, on the topic Models for Oxygen Binding Hemoproteins. In recognition of his exemplary contribution and outstanding achievements towards academic and research excellence, Professor Hamilton has been conferred with honorary doctorate degrees from numerous leading universities, including University of Surrey, Tsinghua University, and University of Exeter, to name a few. In addition to his extraordinary record as an academic leader, Professor Hamilton is an award-winning, widely published scientist. He has continued to maintain his scholarly work, including an active research laboratory, while holding leadership positions. His areas of research and scholarly interest includes bioorganic chemistry, design of artificial enzymes, host-guest chemistry, new approaches in chemistry, protein stabilization and recognition, signal in cellular biochemistry, and novel strategies in drug design. He is a distinguished fellow of the Royal Society, member of the American Academy of Arts and Science, member of American Association for the Advanced Science, and the proud recipient of coveted Arthur C. Cope Scholar Award from the American Chemical Society. Professor Hamilton is an embodiment of continuous excellence, highest professionalism, graciousness, and generosity. He has the courage of conviction, an immense quest for knowledge, and a direct and forthright approach. It is with utmost respect that MIT University confers the Doctor of Science honoris causa upon Professor Andrew D. Hamilton, Chancellor, MIT University, Uttar Pradesh, 24th February 2022.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as the Chancellor of Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, I hereby confer upon Professor Dr. Andrew D. Hamilton the doctoral degree DSc honoris causa.
May I now request Professor Andrew D. Hamilton to please deliver his acceptance speech. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. And Chancellor Chauhan, to all of you distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart from this very great honor from Amity University. Greetings to you all, to the entire community, to the distinguished leadership of Amity University, and also to colleagues from across industries who have come together today. I am delighted to accept this deep honor. Now, this morning, a rather somber and challenging morning with the grave news that we've all heard from the Ukraine. But I join you from New York City and from New York University. This is an institution not at all unlike Amity University. It's an institution with Amity that reminds us today of all days how important universities are to the world. We are both, NYU and Amity, we are both dedicated to shaping students to help tackle the world's challenges through research, through innovation, and most especially through a global lens. I am struck by the pioneering and the creative vision of the Amity community. I've been fortunate, as you've heard in that citation, that very exaggerated citation, I have to say, but I've been very fortunate in my career to work at some of the world's most venerable universities. NYU is the youngest. It's only 191 years old. Yale is almost 321 years old. And Oxford is over 900 years old. But I have no doubt that Amity University will have an equally long and illustrious history in the centuries ahead. Now, I've been thinking a lot lately about why universities are important. And again, I emphasize this morning this has been reinforced even more to me. Why universities are important, not only those that are centuries old, but also those that have been recently established. And I've also been thinking about what is it that makes universities endure? In part because while I firmly believe that we are in an era when there has never been a more critical need for higher education, concurrently, the values of higher education are being called into question. In some countries, including England, the country where I grew up, and I have to also say in the US where I live, in some countries, there are perplexing and troubling signs of what I call turning away. What do I mean by that? Turning away from those who think differently from us. Turning away from those who come from different parts of the world. Turning away from those in our societies who are the most vulnerable. And at the same time, there's also been, in some countries, including the United States, a turning away from science, a disregard for facts and critical thinking. Rigorous debate has lost ground to the comfort of listening only to those who agree with us. In thinking about these worrying trends, I am reminded of a particular anecdote about one of my favorite authors, the Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson. And I revisit this anecdote when I think about higher education, as the metaphor remains relevant and powerful. Now, each night, growing up in 19th century Scotland, Robert Louis Stevenson used to watch the man who lighted the lamps, the lamplighter, as he made his way down the street with a ladder and a torch, lighting the street lights for the night. One evening, the story goes, Stevenson was asked what he was looking at, and he exclaimed, "Look at that man. He is punching holes in the darkness." I think that's such a sharp and important phrase, because that's exactly what universities do. They punch holes in the darkness. Universities shed light on the truth by unearthing facts and conducting evidence-based research. Universities illuminate the human experience through art and through literature. Universities offer insight into the present by examining the past. They light the way forward to the future by nurturing deep and nuanced thinkers. They create well-rounded leaders, as well as skilled and principled professionals. Universities in the past, today, and into the future, universities spread the light of understanding by opening us up to new perspectives and new cultures. Universities foster compassion and peace. Every single day, universities punch holes through the darkness of ignorance, small-mindedness, and injustice. And that is certainly what Amity University does. And I'm proud to say it is what NYU does as well. But Amity, let me emphasize this morning, Amity ensures that every student, regardless of speciality, has an invaluable foundation, whether it's in the humanities, whether it's in science, engineering, management, or whatever field a student's passions lead them to during their time at Amity. But more than that, Amity's global presence and global partnerships allows students to gain rich and meaningful cultural and international experiences while deepening studies in their fields. And this conference this evening is an example of the power of the university to bring together leaders and scholars to help shed light on research and the conundrums of the times. Today, especially today, a very important topic indeed. And while we deal with the challenges of the day, we are all throughout the world dealing with the consequences of a pandemic that we seem to be coming out of, but a pandemic that will lead to a new post-pandemic world order. This theme, this focus is particularly fitting when the pandemic itself has affected your country and my country and our world so profoundly. While there is a great deal to be learned from the business and technology community here in how to carry out business and further innovation while navigating and emerging from this pandemic, and we will learn that this evening. But it has also been a new terrain, this post-pandemic world, a new terrain for those of us in higher education. And I would say, I say this to Amity, I say it to my colleagues in the United States, I think we've done a fairly good job learning to fulfill our educational and research missions in spite of COVID-19 as we continue to train new generations of international leaders. And so as I come to a close, I want to thank all of you this evening for bestowing this very great honor on me. I am deeply honored to receive this distinction from Amity University. I accept it with the deepest gratitude, and I express my thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Professor
Thank you very
Hamilton,
much, President.
thank you for the most powerful words, and you have lit the path for all of us. We welcome you once again to the Amity family. We are so honored, Professor Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sirs. With this, may I now request our Honorable Chancellor, Amity University of Uttar Pradesh, to declare the convocation closed, and we continue with our keynote and other sessions.
I hereby declare the special convocation closed.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the most awaited event, the US-India session. Life is not judged merely by the heartbeats, but by the way you accept and overcome the challenges of life. Never sit back and wait for an opportunity to find you. You get up, you search for one, and it exists, you find. So don't be afraid of challenges. Let them take you somewhere new. Indeed, the outbreak of the virus had forced changes big and small, some of which are here to stay. Nations are often found to have a sense of confidence that their institutions can envisage calamity, contain the impact, and reinstate the stability. However, things have turned out to be completely different. Coronavirus has such a grappling effect that it has brought the world to its knees. With the global pandemic, it has become a turning point at both the national and international levels. It has made us realize that we all turn one another as one single unit in the face of a crisis. Many observers of the international affairs have started forecasting the impact of the pandemic on the global order. While it affects global economies, it also affects lifestyles and the complete civilization at large. Ladies and gentlemen, with us we have today a galaxy of leading experts and stalwarts from various walks of life who bring with them their very enriched learnings and experiences that will help us understand how the US and India ties will help the two countries sail through these turbulent times. It is also my privilege and honor to introduce to you Dr. Aseem Chauhan, sir, Additional President RBEF and Chancellor Amity University, Rajasthan. He is the entrepreneurial think tank of the Amity Group, an illustrious alumnus of the Wharton School of University of Pennsylvania. May I now call upon Dr. Aseem Chauhan, sir, for his welcome address and special remarks.
On behalf of the entire Amity Education Group, and particularly on behalf of our founder president, Dr. Ashok Chauhanji, I would like to welcome all of our exceptionally esteemed panelists and participants on today's session on US-India ties. Dr. Gurinder Singh, Group Vice Chancellor of the Amity Universities, I congratulate you for organizing the 22nd International Business Horizon Conference, which has year upon year brought together thought leaders from around the world to deliberate on the most pressing issues of our time. Dr. Balvinder Shukla and all colleagues at Amity, it is a great day for all of us to be able to have the quality of thought leaders that we have today. And truly, I'm humbled to see so many luminaries on today's panel, and we look forward to hearing from each one of them. Professor Shrikant Datar, Dean of Harvard Business School, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today. We look forward to hearing from you. We have two great innovators, Mr. Sam Petroda, who is an example of innovation and has brought the telecom revolution to India. Mr. Petroda, your son Sal and I have been dear friends for 25 years from our days in New York, and I have been tracking your writings since that time. And Sabir Bhatia, who is a great entrepreneur in his own right, the hotmail of India, as we say, and who has been pushing the envelope of entrepreneurship for many decades in the country. There are many friends that I'm seeing here today. First, Sumitra Datta, who spoke last when we met in Cambridge in the US on artificial intelligence, and who has been the dean at Cornell. It is a pleasure to see you, and we look forward to your views. And Professor Chakrabarti from UMass Lowell, I remember our times together and brainstorming. We have Professor Richard Steele from UMass, also from the law department. We welcome you, Professor Steele, and so many others, Gulpreet Dhillon and other friends that are here today. At the Amity Education Group, particularly at this particular moment in time, we feel that it is only through collaboration and learning from each other that we can move towards solving the biggest problems of our time. And when we see all of you, we feel inspired that the kind of people that have come on a platform to talk about the very important strategic relationship of US and India. Just a few minutes ago, Professor Andrew Hamilton, who is the president of NYU and former vice chancellor of the University of Oxford, gave a very nice analogy. He said that the role of higher education is possibly to punch holes in the darkness and thereby bringing illumination and knowledge to those who need it most. And when I see the people that are here with us today at this INBUSH platform, I truly can say that we will be following that advice of Professor Hamilton. And together, I think we will be deliberating on what we can do to collaborate. As some of you know, and as I had mentioned, but I will repeat in case others have joined a little later, our vision at the Amity Group is to create global leaders and enable student mobility, research exchange, and faculty engagement across the world so that we can learn from the likes of you. And we have recently acquired a 175-acre campus on Long Island in New York so that we are closer to many of you, and our colleagues are working in different areas of research so that we can together think about what kind of research we can engage in, publications, patents, and allowing our students and faculty to interact more. We would welcome all of you, if you are in the New York region, to please visit that particular university. My gratitude to all of you for being part of today's conversation. I look forward to hearing from each one of you. Dr. Gurinder Singh, again, my compliments. To bring so many giants on one panel is not an easy task. With that, welcome again, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thank you very much, sir, for your welcome address. And may I now request Chancellor, Amity University, Rajasthan, and Group Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, to felicitate our guest of honor and keynote addressee, Professor Srikant M. Datar from the Harvard Business School. Amity University is proud to confer upon Professor Srikant M. Datar Amity Gold Medal for fostering academic leadership and excellence at the Harvard Business School. May I request Group Vice Chancellor, sir, to please introduce Dean HBS to the August gathering and give a brief introduction as well. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Marut. And our youngest alumni, Professor Hamilton, our respected founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Chancellor, Dr. Asim Chauhan, Professor Srikant Datar. It's such a privilege to welcome you. I can see many of our very distinguished friends who are here in our 22nd international conference INBUSH, which on all the scales is the largest and the biggest research conference of Asia. I, from the bottom of my heart, extend thanks to each one of you. I can see Professor Pradeep Khosla, Chancellor of University of California, our very close friend, Professor Sumitra Datta, Mr. Sabir Bhatia, co-founder of Shoril, Dr. Sam Petrada, Dr. Keller, Professor Chakrabarti, Professor Dhilo, Professor Steele, Professor Yaha, Dr. Upreti, our Vice Chancellor of Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, my very close friend, Dr. Gurinder Shukla, Professor Bhavna Kumar, and all others. It's such an honor to present Professor Datar to the very august audience which is today present in this conference. Professor Datar is a Dean of Harvard Business School, and he became the 11th Dean of Harvard Business School on 1st January 2021. Professor Datar is not only an inspiration to the Americans, but we would say that is a living inspiration to all the Indians who aspire and who want to do extraordinary things in the world. A graduate with a distinction from the University of Mumbai, Datar received gold medal upon graduation from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and gold medal from the Institute of Cost and Work Accountant of India, a gold medal from the Chartered Accountant Institution. He holds 2 master's degrees and a PhD from Stanford University. He's a co-author of the leading cost accounting textbook, Cost Accounting, a Managerial Emphasis by Prentice Hall, and Rethinking of MBA Business Education at a Crossroads, Harvard Business School Press. Professor Datar, you are very popular at all the Amity universities. Your books are referred by all our professors. Professor Datar has authored more than 30 cases on topics ranging from data science at Target to Nippon Street. Professor Datar has taught MBA and executive education classes in design thinking, innovation, big data, and strategy implementation. Before joining the Harvard Business School, he was a faculty and had appointments at both Carnegie Mellon University and Stanford University, where he received George Leland Beck Awards for Excellence in Classroom and the Distinguished Teaching Award, respectively. A very humble but a very strong professional, he was honored by the National Association of Corporate Directors as the Public Company Director for 2020. A known professional, he is a member of the American Accounting Association and the Institute of Management Accountant. He has served on the editorial board of several journals and presented his research to the academic and executive audience in North America, South America, Asia, Africa, and Europe. He was awarded the Padma Shri Award from the Government of India. It is with utmost respect that Amity University Conference on Professor Shrikant Datar, MIT Gold Medal for fostering academic leadership. All of us would like to listen from you, Professor Datar, your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gurinder Singh, for those very, very kind and generous words. I am deeply humbled and honored to receive the Amity Gold Medal for fostering academic leadership and excellence. And it's just a true privilege to be here. Founder President RBEF, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, President RBEF and Chancellor Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Additional President RBEF and Chancellor Amity University, Rajasthan, Dr. Asim Chauhan, Group Vice Chancellor Amity University, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, Professor Marut Bisht, faculty, staff, students and alumni of Amity University and distinguished guests. I have followed and know the amazing work of Amity University over many, many years. So it is, as I said earlier, truly a privilege to have the opportunity to say a few words on this occasion. It is particularly joyful to receive this award as you celebrate the International Business and Research Conference INBUSH Era World Summit on the theme of nurturing people, purpose, partnerships, planet and performances for creating sustainable world-class organizations. Let me say a couple of words on the theme of the conference because I believe it applies to both US and India, and a few words on the post-pandemic world order, US-India ties, and the challenges and opportunities. Soon after I was appointed Dean of Harvard Business School in October 2020, I spoke individually and in small groups to faculty, staff, students, and alumni to understand key issues that business should focus on over the next decade. There were two major insights. First, the need to develop leaders adept at navigating the most important challenges and opportunities business and society face today. And second, to develop leaders who are facile in leading organizations where digital and technological transformations, data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are disrupting industries and business and operating models. So this led us to consider setting up two new institutes to allow Harvard Business School and its faculty to engage with companies and managers all over the world, with alumni and with other parts of Harvard in new ways to generate research with impact. Let me spend a couple of minutes describing this work because it has, I think, a lot of implications for what happens in both the US and in India. The first institute is what we call this Institute for the Study of Business in Global Society, or BIGS. We are of the strong belief that business is a force for good in the world, having lifted billions of people out of poverty, created fulfilling jobs through innovation and entrepreneurship, and increased our standards of living and health. We envision several strands of work, but let me give you 3 examples which relate to the themes of this conference and to the environment we will face in both the US and in India. The first is what is called the 110 Initiative. The goal of the 110 Initiative is to place 1 million Black and underrepresented minority individuals who do not have a college degree in living wage jobs in corporate America over 10 years. The simple thesis of the initiative is that talent in the world is more uniformly distributed than opportunity, and that individuals have the talent, skills, and motivation to succeed in jobs, even though they did not have the opportunity to get credentials. If this thesis is correct, companies will be able to access larger pools of talent. This will be a win for business and a win for society. A second example is developing new measurement and reporting systems called impact-weighted accounting to evaluate a company's environmental, social, and governance impacts. Some of the research done at the school provides evidence that such purpose-driven companies create greater value over the long term. Third, research on ways to develop strategies for sustainability. Here I will borrow from ideas that Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, shared with us a few weeks ago. Corporate leaders are charged with developing strategies that sustain their performance over time. But to do so, companies must strive to do four things. First, support inclusive opportunities, such as by helping people learn digital skills and by strengthening communities. Second, protect fundamental rights, such as racial equity, democratic institutions, and human rights. Third, commit to a sustainable future with goals to be negative carbon, water positive, and zero waste. And fourth, and very importantly, earn the trust of society by protecting privacy and ensuring security. We are working to develop curricula to help students navigate the challenges of these over-constrained problems. All three of these initiatives are applicable to India. India needs to think about how to access and develop its tremendous human resources, particularly in socio-economically disadvantaged communities. It needs to think about the environment, since climate change is likely to affect India more severely than other countries. And its companies need to develop sustainable strategies. I hope the Institute for the Study of Business in Global Society will further engender closer ties between the US and India, and between US universities and Indian universities. The second institute we are setting up is the Institute for Digital Data Science and Design and Innovation, that we are calling D-Cubed. This institute will include faculty labs across areas such as digital marketing, health tech, privacy ethics and bias, and fintech to provide more leverage for faculty research. Again, it will also connect to outside networks of experts and companies all over the world and develop partnerships with other schools and universities. I believe the forces of technological progress and higher productivity, as represented by DQ, must go hand in hand with business and society and the distribution of wealth as represented by the work of BIGS. This is true in the US and in India. In the context of Mahatma Gandhi's 7 deadly sins, we cannot progress science without humanity, or advance knowledge without character. I have often described COVID as the passageway to our future. COVID has accelerated many trends, such as digital transformation and the future of work, that would probably have taken a decade or more. This will create tremendous opportunities, but also challenges. Imagine digital technologies accelerating the opportunities for Indian companies to support healthcare, legal, architectural, accounting, information technology, telecommunications, and education services in the US and other parts of the world. Of course, these opportunities will have to be counterbalanced against the current environment of nationalism, concerns about income inequality, and a weakening middle class. Ray Dalio's excellent book on the changing world order describes some other concerns. Studying the history of the world over 500 years, Dalio presents three big cycles that might help predict the future direction of different countries. One, the long-term debt and capital market cycle. Two, the internal order and disorder cycle. And three, the external order and disorder cycle. The cycles are characterized by a period often extending over hundreds of years, when a country rises, reaches a top, and then declines before the cycle starts again. Based on several indicators, Dalio believes the US is the strongest world power based on its large capital markets, strong technology, innovation, and education, and its reserve currency status, but in gradual decline because of its high debt burden, income inequality, and internal conflict. Dalio classifies India as a modest power and ascending based on its strong economic and financial position and cost-competitive labor, but challenged by its relatively weak position in education, innovation and technology, and its wealth, income, and value gaps. To overcome its weaknesses and to capitalize on post-COVID opportunities, India will have to invest in education and skill building. Its best opportunity lies in closing the digital divide and using technology to train its workforce. As President Abdul Kalam once said, unemployability is worse than unemployment, and quality education is the best way to cure this ill. I am truly grateful that universities like Amity University are embracing the challenge of filling this most critical of needs for the future. India needs the commitment, determination, passion, and drive of your faculty, staff, students, and alumni. It has been a true privilege to be with you today. I am humbled to be in the presence of so many distinguished colleagues, many of whom I've known well from my earlier interactions with them. Thank you again for this high honor. Thank you again very, very much.
Professor Datar, exceptional insight, and thank you so much for your kind words. We are very, very grateful, Professor Datar. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words of wisdom. Indeed, you represent an institution with a remarkable legacy of impact in research, education, and practice. We thank you for sharing your leadership experience, your intimate knowledge of the deep devotion to the institution. We understand, Honorable Group Vice Chancellor, sir, that Professor Datar has to leave as he has a couple of commitments. So we request you to, sir, please bless us some other day as well. Thank you very much for joining us. We are truly humbled.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Datar. We are honored.
With this, I request Additional President RBEF, Dr. Asim Chauhan, sir, and Group Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, sir, to please welcome our special addressee, Chancellor Pradeep K. Khosla from the University of California, San Diego. Sir, we request you to please present the award and read the citation and also introduce the guest.
Professor Pradeep K. Khosla, Chancellor of University of California, San Diego. Professor Khosla became UC San Diego's 8th Chancellor on August 1, 2012. As UC San Diego's Chief Executive Officer, he leads a campus with more than 40,000 students, 7 undergraduate colleges, 6 academic divisions, and 6 graduate and professional schools. Professor Khosla initiated and led UCSD first ever strategic plan and the ambitious $2 billion campaign. An internationally renowned electrical and computer engineer, Professor Khosla previously served as a Dean of the College of Engineering and Philip and Marsha Dodd University, Professor at Carnegie Mellon University. He is the Honorary Fellow of the Indian Academy of Science. Professor Khosla is also recipient of numerous awards for his leadership, teaching, and research, including the 2012 Light of India Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Society of Mechanical Engineering, and the George Westinghouse Award for contributions to improve engineering teaching. In 2012, he was named as one of the 50 most influential Indian Americans by the Silicon Valley. It is with utmost respect that MIT University confers on Professor Khosla MIT Global Academic Excellence and Leadership Award. Over to you, Professor Khosla. We'd like to listen from you, your thoughts.
Thank you, Professor Singh. And let me first of all say it is indeed a great honor. It's one thing to receive an honor from multiple international organizations that are not your home country, and it's slightly different and very special to get to be recognized in your home country. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate this from the bottom of my heart. And I'm more honored because being honored with me are some of my good friends who I have not seen in a while. And I want to say congratulations, Sam. Congratulations, Sumitra, Sabir, Shrikant. Congratulations, everybody. Professor Hamilton, Professor Steele, congratulations. Let me say a big thank you to Dr. Chauhan, founder and president of RBEF, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Dr. Asim Chauhan, Dr. Gurinder Singh, you, sir, and Professor Marut Bish. Thank you very much for everything you've done to make this happen and this exciting conference. Let me share a few words. What I want to do today is talk about the power of collaboration. So this conference is about having important conversations about our shared futures at the confluence of engineering, technology, and business management. And you've already heard some really wise words from Professor Datar and Professor Hamilton. So today, I want to talk about collaborative scientific research, which is slightly counter to each country trying to control their research, trying to control their patents, and trying to control their discoveries. And what I want to put forth is this notion of collaboration that can lead to amplification of the results and the impacts these results can have. So I entered this discussion from multiple perspectives. As mentioned already, I'm the chancellor of UC San Diego, and we are one of the top 5 institutions in the US in research with more than $1.6 billion of research funding. I'm also an entrepreneur part-time, kind of, when I want to have some fun. I'm also on the board of directors, for example, of Tata Consultancy Services. And I'm also on the board of multiple small startup companies. But most importantly, as a faculty member, I've been a principal investigator for multiple research programs for the National Science Foundation, for DOD, Department of Defense, NASA, etc. But one of my best experiences was being a program manager at DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And for those who may not know about it, if you want to think about the internet, DARPA claims they invented the internet. So that's the positive aspect of that work. But they also invented the stealth fighter. So that is the unfortunate situation that we are experiencing today in a very unfortunate morning attack by Russia on Ukraine. But more about that later. I'm also an engineer, but I went into engineering primarily motivated by physics. But physics not being a great, at that time when I was growing up in India, your choice was to be an engineer or a doctor. But me wanting to be a physicist did not sit well with my parents because I wanted to be a nuclear physicist. So they somehow talked me out of it, which today they cannot talk me out of it, but then they did. And I basically went to IIT Kharagpur to pursue electrical engineering, which looking back has been a great career. And I'm so glad I did that. I've been always motivated by a deep desire to learn how things work and how to fix things. So my love for physics and engineering led to curiosities into other areas of science as well. And that has served me really well as the leader of a great institution, because as a leader, I have to opine on biology, life sciences, medicine, humanities, arts. You can go down the list. And in all of these, in thinking about all of these issues, there's nothing more important than the ability to think critically, the ability to ask deep questions, and the ability to come up with answers based on rational choices that are being made. Okay. But in spite of all of this, I'm basically at heart a scientist and an engineer. And my respect for science continues to grow exponentially every day. So let me talk a little bit about why. Science is informative. Through science, we can think deeply about issues affecting our world. We can extract a problem statement and focus our efforts. And then we can work deeply to solve that problem. Science is also iterative. It is a remarkable system that continually learns from the act of doing it. It continually questions every result you get. Its built-in feedback loop ensures that we evolve when better information is discovered and applied. Science is egalitarian. It provides a direct conduit to knowledge that anyone can access. Science is verifiable. And although peers across the globe review and verify results, anyone should be able to reproduce a scientific experiment. Science is ubiquitous. It allows us to explore the basis of all human knowledge, learning, and creativity. Science is powerful. In the short term, it relieves suffering, increases economic productivity, promotes social mobility, and over time, it has built and destroyed every great human civilization. Science has the potential to heal the world or annihilate entire species, including our own. So, how does humankind manage such great responsibility? They do that through social movements that evolve alongside science. Movements such as the Age of Enlightenment, the Industrial Age, the Information Age. These movements forge foundational principles underlying theories and cultures of thought to pique our curiosity and inspire effort. For example, the optimism that technology will eventually solve all of society's problems was shared by both the Industrial Age and the Information Age. And in the last decade, we have come to realize that more technology by itself cannot be and is not the solution. While it has lifted many humans out of poverty, cured disease, and enriched our lives, it has also made the world increasingly complex, difficult to navigate, and if I may say so, added to income inequities. And because of this, I think it's time to alter our foundational principles and underlying theories and culture of thought. We need to inspire better science that searches for holistic solutions. The way to get there is through a movement known as the democratization of science. This democratization of science fully incorporates principles of accessibility, transparency, and accountability. It operates on two main principles of social responsibility and environmental sustainability. It promotes science that is open to everyone. It insists on science that is transparent in its intent, approach, and process. And it considers the societal outcomes of research at least as closely as the scientific and technological outputs. So let me give you some examples of this democratization in action. So we have seen great strides in artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, bioinformatics, robotics, and machine learning, which happen to be my fields. And massive amounts of information and data on any given area are made public on a daily basis, collected by sensors, collected by a whole range of other processes. And this is made possible through what I call the data commons that store data for research projects taking place across the globe. And the emerging field of data science is helping pull together these multidisciplinary data sets. It then uses AI and machine learning to help researchers locate and explore trends that lead to better discoveries. So you need but you do need an idea of where to dig in order to find the treasure. And data science can help remove some of this guesswork. It eliminates expensive initial discovery that has already been done, and no more reinventing the wheel. So today, small labs across the globe are able to do big research using publicly available data. And this is possible only if we share our data openly and in a very transparent manner. And this, by the way, is a game changer. It's a game changer, especially for underdeveloped and developing countries. We just heard from Shrikant that talent is distributed uniformly. Can you imagine all of this talent being deployed and unleashed on this data, which the country may not have created, but which the country has access to, and the outputs that could result from this? So, and one can imagine doing this in multiple different ways. One can imagine doing this by putting virtual reality in there, by putting artificial intelligence in there. So I can go down the list. But bottom line is, the more we collaborate, the more we share scientific data, the better access, the better progress we will make, and the better. And most of humanity needs to rely on basic science to develop great technology, to build great companies, to alleviate poverty, which exists across the world, by the way. Poverty in the US may not be as common as many other countries, but nonetheless, it's there. So, the point I'm trying to make is sharing data and research findings more widely will increase discovery and economic mobility worldwide. And if you think about what it takes better government policies. It takes a collaborative approach to understanding how these policies can be implemented across the world in a way that we are not harming each other. So let me just say thank you very much for this award and for giving me a chance to share a few words about collaboration and how it impacts human condition. Thank you, everybody, and congratulations, my colleagues, who are being honored. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Chancellor Pradeep K. Khosla, an internationally renowned computer engineer and electrical engineer, the 8th Chancellor of University of California, San Diego. We thank you, sir, for your pearls of wisdom. And with this, may I request Additional President and Group Vice Chancellor, sir, to please felicitate our next addressee, Professor Soumitra Datta from Cornell University.
Professor Soumitra Datta is a Dean-elect of the said School of Business, Oxford University. Professor Datta is a Professor of Management and the former founding Dean of the Cornell S.C. Johnson College of Business at Cornell University, New York. He is known in the field of academics as an authority on innovation in the knowledge economy with a refreshing global perspective. He is the co-editor and author of the Global Information Technology Report, published by the World Economic Forum, and the Global Innovation Index, published by the World Intellectual Property Organization, two influential reports in technology and innovation policy. He is currently the chair of the board of the Global Business School Network, a Washington, D.C.-based not-for-profit focused on building management capability in Africa and other frontier markets, and is on the advisory board of dozens of business schools, including HEC Montreal. Previously, he has been the vice chair and the chair of the prestigious AACSB International, the leading accreditation body for the business schools worldwide. He is a member of the privileged Davos Circle group of participants who have been invited to the annual meetings of the World Economic Forum in Davos for more than 10 years. He has co-founded two firms, including Fisheye Analytics, which WPP Group acquired. Dean Datta received is an alumnus of Indian Institute of Technology, New Delhi, and University of California at Berkeley. It is with utmost respect that MIT University confers upon Professor Soumitra Datta MIT Global Academic Excellence Award. Over to you, Professor Datta.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Singh. I also want to express my gratitude to Dr. Chauhan, in fact, Dr. Asim Chauhan and Dr. Atul Chauhan, and Professor Marud Bisht, and many other dignitaries and, in fact, good friends who are there today. It's an honor and privilege to be awarded this distinction from Amity. I've had the pleasure of seeing Amity grow from strength to strength over the last few years. In fact, not only have I visited your campus in India, but also my own nephew is a graduate of Amity. So I have a personal graduate at home also who's very happy with his education at Amity. The topic for our discussion today is really linked to what I believe is a very important tipping point we are facing in education, which is, of course, the COVID and what we're looking at in the post-COVID environment. As was mentioned earlier, I am the chair of the Global Business School Network. And when the COVID pandemic started about 2 years ago, we realized that many of our member schools required some additional support and help in thinking about the future. So we started a small little project in which we started interviewing and talking and discussing with leaders around the world about what they foresaw as the future of the world, especially of education after COVID. When we conducted the interviews, COVID was in full rage, and people, of course, very concerned about a number of things. But a lot of those interviews revealed some common streams of thought, some common concerns, and common hopes and opportunities also. We put together all those observations in edited format in a book called The World After COVID. And I just wanted to share with you 2 observations amongst the many that we picked up from our various interviews. The first one really is of the necessity for education to innovate. Education has innovated, of course, but perhaps not as much as some other sectors, especially given all the digital impact that we have seen on various sectors around us. If you look at, one way to look at impact of technology is to think of it in a simple 3-stage order. The first order of impact of any new technology is when the new technology substitutes the old technology. So, for example, cars substitute horse carriages. The second order of impact is diffusion, when more and more people start using the new technology just simply because it's easier, cheaper, better, higher quality in some form. So again, if taking the car example, you saw in a matter of a few years, the number of horses used for transportation declined dramatically as the ownership of cars increased, at least in the West. The third order of impact is the most interesting one, which is transformation. When new ways of living and working start emerging, because the new technology is so widespread and so widely used. So in the case of the same car example, socioeconomic structures like shopping malls and suburbs became possible because people could live somewhere and drive somewhere for work, and they could in fact separate out different locations of activity. Now, if you think about the digital acceleration in education that we have witnessed over the last 2 years, yes, we have had a rapid substitution. So not all universities, or at least many of them, have forced to substitute the in-person teaching by remote teaching. And yes, we have had rapid diffusion. It was mandated. Governments in most countries essentially gave no choice. You had to essentially move to an online education format. Now we are at a transition point, and what I would term as Clayton Christensen's innovator's dilemma question is, where do we go from here? Do we in fact create a new normal, which is a transformation mode of looking at education in a transformed future? Or do we in fact go back to the old normal? And do we in fact revert back to the education as it was before? Now, I know that a lot of people would feel that going back to the old normal is not desirable, or perhaps is not the norm. But what is interesting is that if I look at the world around us, there's a lot of movement happening in going towards the direction. I see many, many universities who are in fact forcing their faculty and staff to go back towards in-person teaching, go back towards the model of education that it was before. And of course, the pressures of this are not just only the common statement, which is correct, that education is most effective in in a face-to-face format, the students learn better and so on. But it also touches upon important questions in terms of infrastructure, in terms of capital decisions, in terms of hiring of faculty. It's a number of very important questions are raised if you look at a different future of education. Now, how do we create this new future? Because the answers are not completely clear. No one knows exactly what the new future is going to look like. Today, education by Zoom or Teams or some online video platform is most likely not the view of education in the future that we'll see in 10, 20 years' time. But who creates the future? And I think this is an important responsibility that we have, because we have to collectively create the new future of education, not just to leverage these various digital technologies available to us, but more to, in fact, help achieve the sustainable development goals. We have heard from our previous distinguished speakers about the importance of education for social mobility, for other kinds of good things in society. And universities like Amity and others have the responsibility to educate and to, in fact, spread that light of education in society around us. And how do we do so? Because today in the current models, we cannot actually hope to educate the kind of people in the way we want to do so in any large-scale format. So we have to innovate, we have to experiment. And I think what I would like to see in many universities, and hopefully Amity can take an important role out there, is an experimenting about what new models can arise in the future. And this is the same way in which the big tech firms, they're constantly experimenting about the future. The big tech firms, they're constantly trying to experiment, place bets on this technology, on this model, and this kind of approach. And they are trying to see which model works and what will actually be the winner in the future. So in a similar way, what I really believe, and this is something that came out in the work that we're doing, education really has to enter into a phase of rapid experimentation with a focus on trying to create a transformed and better future for all of us. The second point that I just want to touch upon briefly that came out in the interviews was a reflection on leadership. Now, the people we are interviewing were all deans and university leaders. So, they, of course, had leadership as a core part of the challenge. And somehow, I think what the COVID pandemic has done is that it has caused university leaders to rethink their role and definition of leadership. Traditional leadership in business has often been seen as a push towards getting more productivity, getting higher quality products and services. In education, it is often seen as trying to, in fact, educate more students better, trying to create new programs, trying to create new collaborations, and so on. But what we picked up in the discussions was really a realization that a humane side of leadership has become more important today. I think the pandemic has forced a realization that the human factor in the organizations that we take for granted is something that we nurture, to be cultured. As leaders, we have to pay special attention to the human side of organizations, the staff, the students, and faculty, of course, inside organizations. And today, if you look at, for example, in many universities I see, after the pandemic, many staff and many faculty don't really want to come back to the classroom or to the office in the same way as before. And this is something that cannot just be dismissed easily. We have to recognize the fact that people are expressing the desires in different ways, and we have to be able to create a future in which people feel more safe and more secure, and at the same time, they're able to balance their personal and professional environments much more effectively. So this notion of trying to create the humane leadership style is very important, came out very prominently in our own discussions. And at the same time, a lot of the university leaders also felt that they themselves had to look after their own sort of mental, psychological health to be able to lead the organizations better. They felt that they had to, it's like the principle in the airplanes, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help others. So a lot of leaders also felt that they have to be much more mindful of their own personal sort of physical, mental health to be able to lead the organizations into the new future. So let me sort of conclude with those two messages: the need to experiment and the need to have a much more reflective and a humane side of leadership in our organizations, because collectively we have to create the future of education. No one else will do it for us. So we have to do it. And I certainly hope that University like Amity and others will in fact take the lead in that. So thank you so much for this honor and distinction. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this great group of distinguished colleagues and friends. Great to see some friends also after some time virtually. So thank you very much. And thank you. I'm very honored.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Professor Soumitra Datta. And as Dr. Singh rightly mentioned, that he is an authority in innovation and technology. Thank you, sir, for showing us that the choices we make today create the future that we are dreaming of. We are so proud to have you. And on behalf of everybody present here, we congratulate you for your new enterprise. And we are honored to note that you will soon be heading the SET Business School, Oxford University. Thank you very much. With this, we invite our next addressee for this event, Mr. Sabir Bhatia, and I request Additional President RBEF and Group Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, sir, to please welcome and felicitate our next speaker.
Mr. Sabir Bhatia, co-founder of the Hotmail.com and Showreel.com. Mr. Sabir Bhatia is an Indian-American businessman who co-founded famous companies, the webmail company Hotmail.com. He briefly worked for Apple Computer as a hardware engineer and Firepower Systems. Later, with his colleague Jack Smith, set up Hotmail on 4 July 1996. American Independence Day, symbolizing freedom from the ISP-based email and the ability to access a user's inbox from anywhere in the world. The whole world knows Mr. Sabir Bhatia as an innovator. As the president and CEO, Mr. Bhatia led Hotmail until its eventual acquisition by Microsoft in 1988 for an estimated $400 million. Mr. Bhatia worked at Microsoft for 1 year after the Hotmail acquisition, and in April 1999 left Microsoft to start another venture, Arzu, an e-commerce firm with investment from Muhammad Asif, a top Indian-American banker at JP Morgan. Mr. Bhatia started a free messaging service called Jackster SMS. He said that Jackster SMS would do to the SMS what Hotmail did for email, claiming it to be disruptive technology. He says that the operators will lose revenue on the reduction in the number of SMSs on the network, but will benefit from the data plan that the user must buy. It is with utmost respect that MIT University confers upon Mr. Sabir Bhatia MIT Gold Medal for nurturing the technology landscape world over.
Thank you very much for your very kind words and generous introduction. I wanted to speak a little bit about how entrepreneurs think and what is at the heart of entrepreneurship. And really, at the heart of entrepreneurship is a problem, a problem that an entrepreneur attempts to solve. For example, when I co-founded Hotmail, the real problem that Jack Smith and I were trying to solve was that the company we were working at put a firewall around our corporate intranet. And that made it very difficult for us to access our personal email accounts. I had one at stanford.edu and he had one at AOL.com. And so that's when the idea came to us that what if we made email available on a browser that would solve our problem? And lo and behold, we very quickly wrote the business plan for that and launched the company, and very quickly found that this was a problem that was affecting the 20 million internet users at that time. And since then, today, web-based email has grown, or in different forms. It's not just web-based anymore. It's also mobile accessed to over 3.5 billion users. So that's the beauty of technology today, that the playing field for an entrepreneur is a market that is 7 billion people. There are 6 billion smartphones on the planet today. And that is what is really exciting, that if you've got a good idea, even though it may be a very simple one that solves some fundamental problem, you can very quickly scale and create a market where none existed before. And that's kind of the thinking behind my newest company, Showreel, as well. It started out when the pandemic, at the outbreak of the pandemic, I saw my 8-year-old daughter effortlessly make videos on TikTok, and at the same time, we heard of 1 billion people becoming unemployed as a result of the pandemic. So the genesis for the idea was, this video is certainly going to be a very powerful medium of content consumption. Is there something we can do that is useful with the creation of videos? So Showreel started out as being a platform to help people create videos for a business purpose, if you will. And the first idea, obviously, was to help them create a video resume of their own. And so I assembled a team of programmers to create an app that helped people create a video resume. But once again, found that people are not born actors, so they don't respond to questions that are posed to them in the form of text-based questions. And then I got another idea. What if we made this app that was as if it were a live conversation, as if it were a live Zoom call that we were having? And that is the current version of the app, which enables people to have a two-way conversation. And by having a conversation, we capture a professional video profile of theirs, which obviously ostensibly will help them find a job or find meaningful employment. So that was the genesis of the idea. We have launched the service, and very soon we're going to announce that we will roll this out to 30 million children who are scholarship holders in partnership with the government of India, so they can help create video profiles to help them find employment. But I've been thinking of even modifying this platform even more, and rather than helping people find jobs and it being a video resume site, what if we were to launch and help 1 million kids become micro entrepreneurs by giving them the basic seed funding that is required to create companies which hopefully will solve problems in their own communities. And so the model that is that has been very successful in Silicon Valley over the last 10 years is the Y Combinator model. And I'll briefly describe the model to you. Essentially, Y Combinator provides the very basic first pre-seed financing of about $50,000, and they hold a competition twice a year. And of course, initially they started with just 5 companies, but now they have grown to funding companies all over the world. But in this competition, companies are pitch their ideas to a set of experienced folks who determine which are the best companies in the group and give them that micro kind of funding of just $50,000. Now, the idea that I have, and of course from this program have grown some phenomenal companies such as Stripe and Airbnb and a whole bunch of others that have turned out to be valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So my idea is to kind of replicate that model online and provide micro funding to 1 million entrepreneurs. And thereby, hopefully, they will create 40 to 50 million jobs. And the entire platform is going to be on blockchain. And we're even toying with the idea of kind of creating our own currency to award people and to help them get kind of the first bit of funding that they require. I think this is what is required around the planet, because the traditional mechanisms of providing employment, which is whole large scale manufacturing, I think is outdated. It's had its time, and of course, China has taken majority of the the manufacturing pie, if you will. So I think this new way of thinking, which of course the whole thing was inspired by the pandemic, and we're living in a virtual world. We've got access to blockchain technology with smart contracts where you can execute things and make deals happen using automatically executing contracts, if you will. And the brain power. India is really the most valuable asset that India has is its people. If I'm given access to 30, 40, 50 million smart kids who are on scholarships studying in universities, and I open this challenge to them and microfund them, and then, like I said, you don't need to fund them with $50,000. In India, the equivalent of $50,000 in the United States is maybe $5,000 in India. But if I'm able to fund 1 million such entrepreneurs, you can now change the whole dynamic of thinking and cause a generational change in countries like India. So I mean, these are the kind of ideas that I work with, and of course, I like to challenge status quo and question and push the envelope both in terms of technology and business models. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for giving me this wonderful honor. And I hope something great comes out of this. And I'm sure you will be following my progress. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be alive and to think of these kind of crazy ideas that can really change the world and make it a better place for us all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhatia. I think you rightly quoted the two major yardsticks of entrepreneurship revolve around risk and innovation. Very valuable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Sabir Bhatia, the famed personage because of his venture Hotmail, the poster boy in the 90s for inventing the same. And he's currently topping the charts for his much acclaimed showreel platform globally. We wish you all the best, sir. And with this, we come to almost the culmination of our special addresses. But as they say that all good things may do come to an end. But we've kept the best for you, and I'm honored to invite Mr. Satyan Sam Pitroda, who's often reckoned to as the father of India's computer and IT revolution. I would request our additional president, RBF, Dr. Asim Chauhan, sir, and Honorable Group Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, sir, to please welcome, felicitate, and introduce the next speaker.
Mr. Sam Pitroda is an internationally respected telecom inventor, entrepreneur, development thinker, and policymaker who has spent 50 years in information and communication technology and related global and national development. One of the most respected names in the world, credited with having laid the foundation for the Indian telecommunications and technology revolutions of 1980s. He was also the founder and the first chairman of India's Telecom Commission. In his plural roles, Mr. Pitroda helped to bring the revolution in India's development philosophies and policies with the focus on access to technology as the key to social change. As a way to induce the second phase of India's technology revolution, in 2005, Mr. Pitroda headed India's National Knowledge Commission from 2005 to 2009 to provide a blueprint of reform for the knowledge-related institutions and the infrastructure for the 21st century in the country. Mr. Patroda is a founding chairman of the 5 non-profit organizations, including the India Food Bank, the Global Knowledge Initiative, the Institute of Transdisciplinary Health. He is also a founding commissioner of the United Nations Broadband Commission for Digital Development and the chairman of the International Telecommunication Union Empowering Development Board that looks to empower developing countries with the use of mobile technology. In addition, Mr. Patroda is a serial entrepreneur, having started several companies in the United States. He holds more than 20 honorary PhDs, close to 100 worldwide patents, and has published 5 books and numerous papers and lectured widely all over the world. He lives in Chicago with his wife and is a living inspiration not only for every Indian, but anyone who has a respect for technology. It is with utmost respect that Amity University confers upon Dr. Sem Patroda Amity's Global Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, founder president of RBEF, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Dr. Ashish Chauhan, again Dr. Singh, Professor Marud Bis, Professor Hamilton, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Chicago. It is indeed a special honor and privilege for me to be here with you in the company of distinguished colleagues, Professor Srikant Datar, Professor Pradeep Khoshla, Professor Sumitra Datta, and Mr. Sabir Bhatia. To accept this award, thank you for the honor. I accept this award on behalf of the young Indian talent who helped me bring digital revolution to India. This includes people at CDOT, CDAC, Telecom Commission, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and a whole lot of people who worked very hard to get us where we are. When I started my work in India on telecom in 1981, we had 2 million telephones for 650 million people. It used to take 10 years to get a telephone connection. In a short span of about 35 years, today India has 1.5 billion phones. India is a nation of connected billion. And at the same time, India generates $150 to $200 billion worth of software related services and export. Every year, year after year. The real credit goes to the young talent in India. Today, for the first time in the human history, we are all connected. All 8 billion people are essentially connected. What does this connectivity mean? Is it only about productivity, efficiency, cost reductions, high-tech gadgets, or it is about something else? Can we use this hyperconnectivity to take human civilization to the next level? And that's the question I have been asking for the last several years. Like all of us, I have been in self-quarantine during COVID crisis. And that gave me some time to think about some of these larger issues. Hyperconnectivity is all about not just connection at high speeds, but it's also about content, context, decentralization and democratization of information, decentralization and democratization of implementation, and demonetization of services. Do we just use hyperconnectivity to do things we already know how to do? Or we think about things we don't know how to do with hyperconnectivity? So when I started thinking about these issues, I realized that the world was last designed just about the time I was born. I was born in 1942, 80 years ago. At that time, US-led design created world order, which gave birth to UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO, GDP, GNP, per capita income, and all of these things. We all follow that design, knowingly or unknowingly. I believe that design doesn't work anymore. I believe hyperconnectivity is changing everything around us, from education to health to governance to institutions, judiciary. What does it mean to have a hyperconnected world with reference to the old design? So when you look at the design, right after the design, world got decolonized, led by the movement by Mahatma Gandhi and others in India. No one had ever thought that the entire world will be decolonized in 25 years. The rise of China is something no one had ever realized. Fall of Soviet Union, rise of technology. Technology has become pervasive. Today we can produce anything. The key question is, what is that we want to produce? Then, rise of inequality. 9/11, and finally, COVID crisis. These major events tell me that with hyperconnectivity, we need a new design. The old design was based on democracy, human rights, capitalism, consumption, and military. Then world was bipolar. Soviet Union and US, completely different ideologies. This morning when I got up, I saw what is happening in Ukraine, and I was literally shocked that in this day and age, I never realized that this kind of war is possible. But it is because the design of NATO, UN, and all of these things basically don't work. And we are not willing to accept that yet. So today there are two visions of the world. One, based on American vision, which continuously focuses on the old design. There are some great things about old design. Old design has helped us a lot in improving longevity, decreasing infant mortality, lifting millions and millions out of poverty. But at the same time, old design hasn't solved the problems of inequality, poverty, hunger, violence. Today we spend $2 trillion a year on defense when we know we need $200 billion a year to eliminate hunger. I feel it is time to relook at the potential we can harness from hyperconnectivity. Two visions that we have today, as I said earlier, one relates to American vision, and the second is Chinese vision, which is based on Belt and Road Initiative. Both of these visions are based on command and control. But hyperconnectivity demand collaboration, cooperation, co-creation. So world today needs a third vision. And when I looked at what happened during COVID crisis, like many, I realized that there are only two things that matter in life: planet and people. Planet is in pain because of global warming and the mess we have created because of the old design. People are in pain because the problems related to poverty, hunger, and inequality have not been sorted out. The only way to address these things is to really look at a whole new design of the world. Design that takes democracy to inclusion. Today, world is not inclusive. The fight that is going on in Ukraine is all about exclusion. We need to take human rights to human needs. We need to take capitalism to new economy, circular economy, where you begin to look at things from bottom up and not top down. You decentralize production and not build big factories, but use networking to scale. You look at unorganized sector. You focus on small and medium scale industries. And then consumption is not the answer. We need to focus on conservation and sustainability. Finally, I personally believe it is time to think about non-violence. But that's a big ask from this violent world. Why are we creating all this violence? But then violence begins at home, in families, in neighborhood, in communities, and finally, between nations. Today, we live in an era of surplus. There is no need to fight about anything. Unfortunately, best brains in the world are busy solving problems of the rich, who really don't have problems to solve. And as a result, problems of the poor don't get the right talent. A new design will demand new talent. I worry about India, for example, sitting here, because I believe technology is used in a very different way. Rather than truth, we spread lies. Rather than love, we spread hate. Rather than trust, we focus on mistrust. Rather than inclusion, we believe in exclusion. Rather than decentralization, we focus on centralization. And these are the real issues facing the world today. And I hope that at your university, you can have a broader conversation on this. I believe India and Indian talent globally has a huge role to play in reshaping the world. It is not going to come from America, though the talent is in America, though the capabilities are here, but the mindset here is still that of command and control. Fortunately, Indian talent is spread all over the world. We have almost 4 million people of Indian origin in America. India today can take lead in creating new design of the world. India today can take lead in green technologies, but that requires India to be on track. I believe these things are possible only with democratic values, human values, concern for sustainability, and concern for inclusion. With this, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to look at macro issues at my age and not micro issues. I know I have limited time, and I hope in my lifetime, whatever is little left, we can begin to see planting of seeds for the next design. All we can do today is begin new conversation. Thank you, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir. And
Mr. Petroda, I just want to say, this is Asim Chauhan speaking, that as always, absolutely moving and highly inspiring words from you, and we pray to the Almighty for your long life and health so that you can keep changing the world. And
so I don't know, I have more than 5-10 years, but that's okay, that's fine.
I think God needs you and the world needs you, and we are all praying that we keep getting your blessings and your thoughts.
But Dr. Chauhan, it is your world, and it is world of your students that we need to think about.
We'll come and meet you very soon in Chicago.
We need to clean it up.
Yes, absolutely. We're so grateful for your presence and your words. Thank you so much, Petroda. Thank you.
thank you so much, Chancellor, sir. And I'm happy to share with you that Amity students have taken an initiative under the able leadership of Dr. Gurinder Singh, sir. And the Literary Club at AIBS has also invited Dr. Petroda for a book review on his latest book, Redesign the World, a Global Call to Action. So thank you very much, sir. While we come to an end of the special addresses and the keynotes, we are yet to observe the highlight of the INBUSH era US-India session. And we again have a galaxy of panelists now who will be deliberating upon this critical issue. And with your permission, chairs, I would love to introduce...
Bharat, before we start, I think that maybe that Chancellor Dr. Asim Chauhan can convey his thanks. And on behalf of MIT universities worldwide, it's our privilege to convey our thanks to all the very distinguished speakers who have participated in INBUSH. I would request our Chancellor, Dr. Asim Chauhan, to formally thank. But let me tell you that each one of you who was present here was personally picked up by our founder, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, who has got a great admiration, love, and respect for each one of you. We are organizing INBUSH, which is the largest event of Asia for the 22nd time. And when we were looking at the various topics, we thought, why not to discuss and do some discussion on how the world is going to look after post-pandemic and what role India and US have to play. But incidentally, today is 24th of February 2022, and world is going to remember this day as one of the days which is going to bring a lot of changes in the world. We have seen today what has happened in the morning in India, in Russia, in Ukraine, and how the stock markets have fumbled. World is not going to be same tomorrow. But one thing is for sure, that the contribution of Indians who have settled abroad, who have been in America, who have been in UK, who have been in Germany, they have been able to bring some of the best practices. And that was the reason that we thought that this session we should be able to call inspirational gurus, inspirational leaders who have their origin from India and who have been a motivation to every youngster. And that is the reason that we choose some of those very senior academicians, industry leaders, and stalwarts who have not only been able to give a new definition to the word, but has been able to do something extraordinary. At MIT University, it was a dream of Dr. Chauhan, who has spent more than 3 decades in Germany, to come and create an institution and a university like Professor Sam Petroda, you were saying, that we should be able to contribute to the whole world. When he came to India, India had no private university. His dream was that we should be able to bring a revolution into the whole world. And with that commitment, he told his very able sons, who are our 2 chancellors, Dr. Atul Chauhan, who has studied at London School of Economics and is a product of University College London. And his second son, Dr. Asim Chauhan, who is a product of Wharton Business School and has studied here and has worked in America for quite long. And I can see Mr. Abhay Chauhan, who is sitting here, again, a product of Wharton Business School. Ajit Chauhan, who's a product of Pepsin. Sapna Chauhan, who's a product of Wharton. Amol Chauhan, who's a product of Harvard. And why I'm telling you this? He wanted that best of the brains, they should come back to India and should contribute in the field of education. And we feel so proud today when we see our all vice chancellors. We have got 11 universities, again, the only education group which has got 11 universities in India and 15 foreign campuses abroad. British Council was yesterday telling us that we are amongst the top 3 top educational groups of the world, whom everyone looks after, and felt so proud when today Professor Hamilton told us informally that he follows up MIT University. And it is because we get guidance from all of you. With this humbleness, we are really touched that all of you, you are a living inspiration. Professor Shrikant Dattar, as a Dean of the Harvard Business School, Professor Pradeep Khosla, the Chancellor of University of California, Professor Sumitra Datta, you have always been very kind as a Dean of Cornell, and Professor Sabir Bhatia as a very known industrialist, and of course, Dr. Sam Petiroda. You are the inspiration for all of us. I would request Dr. Asim Chauhan to formally give vote of thanks. But as a chairman of the INBUSH core committee, on behalf of everyone of our business school and from our technology and from all our universities, we are extremely thankful for your presence. Thank you so very much. Over to you, Dr. Asim Chauhan.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. And you're absolutely correct that the galaxy of absolutely brilliant thought leaders, world changers that we have heard from is very valuable. We will introspect, we will implement the thoughts that have been shared and put them to use for the benefit of our students and society. I want to share, because we are actually also amongst friends, that Dr. Gurinder Singh's son, Arman, recently had a very bad accident and still is in hospital. Dr. Gurinder Singh is in Toronto with him, and our founder, Dr. Chauhan, organized an ardas for the whole Amity community to pray for the well-being and health of Arman. But still, Dr. Singh, despite sitting at the bedside at a hospital, the fact that you have been able to organize this whole conference where top academicians from around the world, from so many countries have joined, it shows your dedication not only to Amity, but to the field of academia and research. And we feel proud of you. And the whole Amity community, I think, has this value of trying to have an impact by bringing top minds together. The words we have heard today are exceptional. Dr. Petroda, our founder president, Dr. Ashoke Chauhanji, was remembering you very fondly. I remember one time we sat in the lobby of the ITC hotel, and at that time, we always like to learn about where great people come from. And you mentioned about a lady of a very humble background in Orissa who raised you and the impact that she had on your life. And it is a story that I have never forgotten, because the humility of great people, I think that is something which is so touching. And hearing from greats like Professor Hamilton and Dr. Shrikant Dattar, our friend Professor Sumitra Datta, the great Professor Pradeep Khosla, who has had a great contribution in many areas in India as an advisor to the top leadership, as well as so many others, Sabir Bhatia. I think this session has been, for me personally, very valuable. And whenever I see the vision of our founder coming together, that through ideation and science and technology, research and innovation, entrepreneurship, can we together change the world? When I hear such panels, I think we're moving in the right direction, and we all are committed and pledged that the advice and the thoughts that all of you have shared here today with us, that we will try to imbibe and put that as part of our mission going forward. We are highly inspired and motivated by the time that all of you have given us. My congratulations to the organizing committee of INBUSH. I know that a lot of hard work goes into it, but it will have a lasting impact for many years and decades to come. So thank you to all who are present here. And Dr. Singh, back to you for the continuation of the next program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chancellor Chauhan. And over to MOC.
Thank you very much, sirs. I'm also joined by my co-presenter, Mr. Gaurav Bhatnagar. And with your permission, chairs, we would love to introduce the next panel, which is also a key highlight of the US-India session. We have another galaxy of stalwarts from the US region, and they are going to deliberate on the theme, the post-pandemic world order, and how US and India come to rescue. So with us, we have Professor Gurpreet Dhillon, Professor of IT and Decision Sciences at the University of North Texas. He is the Farrington Professor of IT and Decision Sciences at the University of North Texas. He holds an honorary appointment at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. He graduated with a PhD from the London School of Economics. And in 2019, he received an honorary doctorate from Örebro University, Sweden. We welcome you, sir. We are also joined by one of Amity's old friends and supporters, Professor Supriya Chakrabarty from the University of Massachusetts Lowell. He is currently serving as the director of the Center for Space Science and Technology, and he is always there to support Amity. So we welcome you. Next up, we have an old ally of Amity from Dubai days, Professor Richard P. Steele. He is the Chancellor Professor at the University of Massachusetts Law School. Professor Steele is a Chancellor at the University Law School in the United States, and he teaches torts and comparative law and researches in the information law and policy and development of human rights. He has contributed significantly in the media conference that was held in our Dubai campus. Again, we also have an old associate of Amity, Professor Yahya Kamalipur, former chair of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, North Carolina, A&T State University. He is an internationally noted global media scholar and a professor of media and communication. To his credit, he has a rare distinction of visiting almost more than 50 countries. So we welcome you and we are humbled with your presence. Last but never the least, we have a shining sun from the soil of Uttarakhand, Dr. Sailesh Upreti, and he is the chairman of the board of IN3NY in New York. He is an entrepreneur, mentor, and an inventor of multiple breakthrough technologies with more than 20 years of exclusive experience. And there's a lot of news going around with his recent innovation. We welcome you, Dr. Sailesh Upreti. And with this, we would request Professor Gurpreet Dhillon, sir, to please give his remarks on the theme.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's such a great pleasure to be here. And thank you, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, and Dr. Atul Chauhan, Dr. Asim Chauhan, Dr. Gurinder Singh Ji, and Dr. Marut Bishop for hosting such a wonderful event. It is indeed a pleasure to be here and share some of my thoughts of the post-pandemic world as we see it. I had the privilege, I joined early on in this session, and I had the privilege to listen to Professor Hamilton and others as the proceedings went on. And I took a few notes, being a good student, I took a few notes as we were going through these proceedings. And the themes that were running through our presenters were very interesting, I must confess. And I have picked on some of those thoughts, and I'm weaving them into what I think the world order is going to look like in years to come. Dr. Datar really talked about acceleration of digital transformation. And I think this is so very true. What we are seeing today, right now, sitting here, is nothing more than the manifestation of acceleration of digital transformation. Our connectivity from around the world into this particular forum is an illustration of our progression. And I, being an IT professor of decision sciences and information technology, I value this kind of a collaboration, surely enough. Now, it also has several lessons that we should have in our mind as we make progress. And to that effect, Dr. Khosla talked about science as being informative, right? And the moment he used that term, I was reminded of my good friend, Susanna Zuboff, who talked about informatization back in the 1980s. when she is talking about how the society is evolving and the progression that we are making in terms of information and communication technologies. That is very informative as well, and I think is going to shape the world as we go along. Dr. Smith talked about the new normal or going back to where we were, and being an academic and academic leader myself, we talk about this all the time, whether we're going to go back to where we were or we are going to define a new normal, which is up for debates right now. I do believe sincerely that we are in a process of creating a new future for ourselves, at least in academia. I think the leadership for this, to be very honest, is going to come from outside the US than from within the US. I think the economic pressures on the US educational system forbid us from creating a new normal, but I do see some kind of a hybrid model emerging. So as Dr. Datta pointed out, I think experimentation with the new education future is something that we need to engage in, and I think Amity University is rightly positioned to engage in those experimentations and define that future. And clearly, we talk about, I love the digitization of work. I love what we are doing right now, but you cannot underestimate the human factor that Dr. Datta talked about. These virtual events are great, but the human touch is so very important for all of us as well. And that's why I cherish physical meetings as well. But at the same time, what we are doing right now, bringing people from diverse backgrounds, is so very important. And as Dr. Sam Petroda talked about, there's a focus on inclusivity rather than exclusivity. And I think digital transformation of this kind makes it a level playing field for a lot of people in a lot of disciplines, in a lot of environments, allowing us to be more inclusive than exclusive. Mr. Sabir Bhatia touched upon a very important aspect, which is so very close to most academics, and that we all start with a problem. If there ain't a problem, you don't have an innovation. And there ain't a problem, you don't have a researcher in there. And his mission of taking the Y Combinator online is noble. And I think the technology is there for us, particularly with blockchains and smart contracts, a subject area which is close to my heart. So I think these are all very interesting notions that have been presented. And what Dr. Sam Petroda also touched on, visionary as he is, talked about the connected world. He talked about hyperconnectivity and the creation of a new world order, which we have been skirting around for a very long time. Mr. Petroda was a little more vocal and aggressive in saying that the whole design that we created 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago is failing, right? And there is a time now that we should be recreating that design. We should be rethinking about it. So I think he's very brave to make that assertion. I'm probably not as brave as him, but in a small domain, I think it is time to look at the education sector, which is close to us. So given that, I think what I had originally thought about was to talk about some assertions that I like making about the New World Order. And I think what our esteemed speaker said earlier on in the day resonate with some of the assertions that I would like to make. So my first assertion that I like making here is that the organizational form of the society as we look at of the future is not what it was in the past. It's an infonet organization. And this future is interconnected, it's flatter, it is hyper-connected. And that raises some very, very interesting challenges for us as we go along, not only at a societal level in terms of inclusivity and exclusivity, but also in terms of access. And we can talk more about that, a few assertions, perhaps more in a dialogue than in a narrative. The second assertion I like making is the velocity of change, the velocity of technological change in particular is and will be significant in years to come. And we are already witnessing that. And thanks to the pandemic, that change has accelerated, the connectivity has accelerated, the technological change is sustainable. I remember going into meetings 5 years ago where the Zooms and the WebExes of the world were not favorably looked upon, and it's become a new reality for us in terms of communications and creating a flatter environment for us, as many other things. The third assertion that I like making is that the cycle of work is likely to change. We are already seeing some initial aspects of this cycle of change. And I think these are lessons that education institutions, universities in particular, need to think about more aggressively than otherwise, that how the cycle of work is changing and where we are heading out. Now, these assertions have come together over many decades, for me at least, and these go back to my time in London, first when I was a student at the London School of Economics, later on a doctoral student, and then I used to work at Cranfield School of Management. And during that time, I did a lot of work with one company which doesn't exist in that shape and form anymore. It's John Brown Engineering, which stopped existing in the late 90s. But that was perhaps one of the early companies, the first movers, which created the virtualization of work. It was an engineering and construction company which got taken over by many others. But they did create this virtualization of work. They moved chunks of work from one part of the world to the other so that they could have a 24-hour working day. And that set the scene for many organizations today that are doing it and hence allowing many of us to work more collaboratively. The second organization which I have been invested in for a while, which changed its names a few times, is a company called WorldDoc. It started out in Las Vegas, actually, and it was so ahead of its time because the kind of prescriptions that they were giving to the patients through virtual telemedicine were ahead, and the regulations had not caught up, so they had to reinvent themselves. We fast forward today to 2022, after the pandemic, virtualization of medicine has really taken off, at least in the US. So we see some of these trends that have been emanating, and I believe that these three trends are going to shape our future, and the facts are there for us in each one of them. When we talk about the velocity of change today in 2022, we have as many digital bits as the stars in the universe, right? And that is an amazing piece of statistics. In 2010, we had 0 exabytes of data, right? Today, we have 40,000 exabytes, and 1 exabyte is equal to 1 billion gigabytes. So if you were to just think in terms of a comparison, 1 exabyte can hold 50 to 300 times the content of Library of Congress. That is the volume with which we have been growing in terms of our digitization. In 2021, 22, the number of connected devices are twice that of the human population, right? There are 0.5 billion machine-to-machine connections. Now, why am I saying all this? This sets a platform for us for a hyper-connected world. It's very easy to say we are hyper-connected, but the reality is there. The probability of automation depends upon the job as well, right? And that creates some significant issues for us. The median hourly wage, at least in the US, is less than $20. And there's an 83% chance that you're probably going to be in that category. The hourly wage between $20 to $40 for a person, there's a 31% chance that some Americans are going to be there. The average median hourly wage of more than $40, there's only 4% chance that you're going to be in that category. By default, by the movement in the information communication technologies, we have in many ways created an exclusive world. We like talking about inclusivity, but we have created by design an very, very exclusive world. So the 4% have a better lifestyle just because by design we have connected them to be that way, which is amazing for what kind of an implication that's going to have on us as a society. Interestingly, automation does replace jobs in some industries, but it does also help lead growth in others. Home health care and personal care is very interesting, at least in the US. In the last few years, we have seen a 41% increase in personalized home health care, right? And this is nothing to do with technology. It's just the aging population and what we are doing right now. Talking about one of the other assertions, and then I'll wrap up, is the number of careers that you and I are all used to in a lifetime. You know, when I went to school in India, I grew up in Chandigarh, and then I went to London for my education. So growing up in Chandigarh, you know, I was overwhelmed from my parents and people around me that you're going to get educated till about you're 25 years old. Then between 26 and 31, you're probably going to have a career. You're going to keep working till you're 50, 60, or 65, whatever, and then you're going to retire, right? So this whole notion of one job after my graduation was so ingrained in my mind when I was growing up. Today, if you look at 2022, in the next 8 years, an average American probably has 5 careers, right? So there is education till you're 25, right? Then between 26 and 31, you have 1 career. You're probably going to take a year off. Between 33 and 36, you're probably going to have a second career. Between 37 and 39, you're going to go back to school and retrain yourself, right? That's education number 2 for you. Between 40 and 45, you're probably going to have a career number 3. You're going to take a year off, retrain yourself perhaps. Between 47 and 58, you're going to have your 4th career. You're going to go back to school when you're 56, 57, or 58 years old. And then when you're 60, you're going to have your 5th career. And then you're going to probably retire when you're 75, right? See, this has been possible because of access to education, partially speaking, but in access to information communication technologies. So the world order is really changing. And I believe very strongly that the sooner we become aware of this, the better prepared we will be. And so if I might be bold enough to make a prediction of what I see to be the 3 jobs of the future, I see the routine production service jobs, as I call them, to be the major one. These are repetitive tasks which are performed by the old foot soldiers of our society, high volume enterprises. And these are the jobs which are blue collar in nature, routine supervisory jobs. Some information processing jobs, data center jobs fall into this particular category. So that is one category, routine production service jobs. The second category of jobs that I feel are going to be there, or we are already moving in that, are the in-person services. They have seen the largest growth, at least in North America. And these in-person jobs are simple, repetitive tasks which are done on a person-to-person basis. And all you need is some bit of vocational training. And these are waiters and waitresses, nursing home aides, taxi drivers, janitors, secretaries, if there are any secretaries nowadays, but that's the second category of jobs. The third category of jobs, as I see them evolving, are what I call them symbolic analytic services. These are jobs where where you're really bringing together problem identifiers, problem solvers, and what I call strategic brokers, people who bring different ideas together. Research scientists, design engineers, software engineers, civil engineers, investment bankers, they all fall into this category, and perhaps a few creative accountants. With due respect to Dr. Datar as well, he's an accountant by training, but creative accountants certainly fall into that category. Now, the question arises is, where do you want to position yourself as education institutions, as individuals going into the society, as routine production service people, as in-person service people, or symbolic analytic services, right? By default, unfortunately, the advances in information and communication technology have expanded this. So with that, I'll leave everybody with these thoughts, and happy to take any questions later on.
Many thanks for these deep insights, Professor Dillo. We appreciate your contribution. With this, we request Professor Supriya Chakrabarty to give his remarks. So we would also request other panelists to please restrict to brief remarks because we will have questions at the end, and we would be happy to have answers for those as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm quite humbled by the presence of all these big thinkers, great visionaries, teachers, and I also want to thank Dr. Chauhan, Chancellor Atula Nashin Chauhan. Great to see you, and I'm grateful that you invited me back. That's not a bad sign. And I also want to thank my good friend, Dr. Singh and Dr. INBUSH. Thank you again. For some of those people who don't know, I am in the physics department, masquerading as physicist, but I got trained as an engineer. I'm sort of slightly of different horse of a different color, so to speak. I just wanted to tell you that I was listening to President Hamilton's comment about punching holes through darkness. I do actually the opposite. I'm an astronomer. I don't like other kind of lights. In fact, my current research is to develop technologies that will someday allow us to image planets around nearby stars. And we do that by turning off the lights of the star without doing anything the starlight does to the planet. And that's for my younger colleagues is the Deluminator, the first opening scene in Harry Potter. We are building that. We have built and flown them. I like to do this in space. So I was listening to some of the other luminaries earlier, like Dean Datar talked about. India needs to invest in skill building through quality education. And of course, Dr. Troda talked about a lot of different aspects, democratization, decentralization of knowledge, conservation and sustainability, new design and new talent. And those resonated with me because I am in the talent development business, because at a university, our products are the new talents. And so there are many opportunities. When I visited Amity last time, we talked about developing small satellites by being across the world, literally almost on the other side of the world. And that has become a reality in many different ways. In Brazil, middle school students, these are 6th through 8th graders, they have built and flown satellites. My students have done it. And satellites are something that you can hold in your hand. This is not a satellite, but this is a model of what you can do. It's called a CubeSat, 4-inch on a side or 10 centimeter on a side cube. And you can build and fly this thing. So imagine your education is developing something, putting something in space, touching space, and use that for societal benefits, such as pollution, something that people talked about, monitoring rivers like Ganges, and other things. So these are the kind of things we could do. And all other great minds already talked about what has happened today. And looking at that, I am reminded of what every astronauts who go to space, and when they look back at the Earth, they say, we don't see any political boundaries. We see one Earth. And that's where we need to think. That's where we could train our future generation, both through collaborations. When we were young, space used to be the playground of, countries. Now, middle schoolers are doing it. So imagine where we could be if we really want to set our mind to it. And I also, because I grew up in India, I know when you come to somebody's house, you have to, don't come empty-handed. So if I have the permission to share the screen for 1 second, I want to show an opportunity that I received this in an email yesterday, actually last night. And this is a workshop that's being held called GLEE Workshop. And just to show I'm not advertising my university, this is happening at University of Colorado. This is called Great Lunar Expedition for Everyone. They are trying to do something worldwide. They're inviting ideas, and they're talking about 350 teams and talking about doing education across the world. Those of you who want to know, it's glee2023.org. I encourage the young participants and the great minds to consider programs like this, so we could break down borders through communications. We could bring peace rather than the lunacy that's going on in the world today. So with that, I should stop and listen to everybody else in the panel. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chakrabarty. Indeed, a very crisp and profound remark by you. I think it gives us some more food for thought. And with this, I would request the pleasure of listening to Professor Richard P. Steele from UMass Law School. Over to you, Professor Steele.
Hello, and thank you very much. This is a horse of a very different color because I'm not a scientist at all. But it's an honor to be among this group. And Professor Bisht, I thank you. Chancellor Chauhan, thank you. Vice Chancellor Singh and President Hamilton. I think one turns down any invitation from Amity University at one's own hazard of loss, because I have had such remarkable experiences and collaborations and friendships to come out of my association with Amity. And I'm just delighted to now see you all, including colleagues in Massachusetts, Chicago, and San Diego. And I hope we will all meet live, maybe at Amity, New York, in the days to come. So from my very different perspective, if you'll tolerate it, I'll offer just some thoughts. We live in the age of transnational business. You all know that better than I. And the landscape is truly dominated, as you also must know, by the $5 trillion US oligopoly of Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, and Meta. And this market dominance is proving to be counterproductive to democratic priorities, including development, civil rights, sustainability, inclusivity, as has been mentioned today. And the pandemic has bolstered those dominant positions. The common position of the United States and India in this predicament, to me, is striking. The United States has the largest private market share in technology and media, and India, the world's second largest consumer population. We're both motivated by an entrepreneurial ethic that seeks to insulate inventive capital from regulatory interference. And in my view, we're both anchored culturally in strong systems of shared moral norms. Yet right now, it's Europe and China that are leading the charge on big tech. Europe will finalize the Digital Markets Act this year, and the PRC has brought Alibaba to heel. Neither European social democracy nor Chinese central planning comports with a libertarian business ethos. And I would argue that both the EU and the PRC are struggling with a problem of legislating social norms in public spaces that have been cleansed of spiritual morality rather than shaped by it. So where are the US and India in this? In the United States, our big tech problem fueled the Capitol riot, just as disinformation tragically has incited violence in India. Our governments are failing us, and it's upon our abdication that the EU and the PRC are setting the regulatory agenda with their priorities. The good news I see is that we are well positioned to rally together because the antidote to America's antitrust problem is India's innovation engine. And what better testament to that than what we've heard today with Amity's patent record, Sabir Bhatia's microfunding program. So in my view, we need to free Indian business to create as well as consume. And our countries are moving in that direction. The US DOJ and FTC and the Competition Commission of India are targeting these big tech companies, notwithstanding pleas that doing so will compromise security or stymie investment. In the US Congress, there's bipartisan support for antitrust reform. Bipartisan anything, as you must know, is remarkable today. And the Biden administration has jettisoned consumer price as the exclusive measure of anti-competitiveness. In India, the CCI last year charged Google with abuse of market position and exposed how Facebook and Amazon have misused business organizations to dodge enforcement. When we look at the communications sector, which is my field, we see since the pandemic a political will to regulate misinformation. But admittedly, we also see a chaotic mix of motives. US conservatives rail against big tech social activism, while liberals decry corporate power and hate speech. In India, statists defend internet shutdowns with NGO warnings of impending genocide, while dissenters bemoan silenced protesters and ambiguous digital ethics regulations that privilege state security. Our internecine debates are aggravated by the pandemics having gutted the information ecosystem. In the United States, we're seeing 100 newspapers shuttered annually. The Indian Supreme Court accepted the petition of laid off journalists amid the pandemic, and the CCI is investigating Google News aggregation. So-called soft censorship has left our democracies at the mercy of profit-driven media, including big tech, self-interested politicians, both right and left, and nationalist rhetoric. There is a causal connection between information infrastructure and healthy democracy. And both the United States and India, if laudably motivated by free market policy, invest abysmally in journalism. Recent research by Pickard and Neff, for example, shows per capita annual investment in public broadcasting at about $1 in India, $3 in the United States, compared with $21 in Israel, $142 in Germany. In our countries, the combination of information poverty and pandemic exigency has sparked multi-partisan interest in reimagining our communications infrastructure. And I like to think, after what I've heard today, reimagining communication infrastructure may be according to Mr. Sampetroda's third vision for redesigning the world. So here is our shared reality. If we do nothing but continue to wring our hands and fight amongst ourselves, big tech will be tamed, not by us, and not according to our economic and social values, but by the bureaucracies in Europe and the PRC. And I believe the United States and India in partnership can do better, and that the end of the pandemic is an invitation for us to write our next chapter together. After everything I've heard today, I can't wait to be part of that with all of you. And I think Amity's campuses from New York to Dubai to India are going to be a place where we can do that. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Professor Steele. Indeed, some very interesting perspectives and talking about, policy and strategy. With this, I would request our second last panelist for today, Professor Yahya Kamalipur, who brings with him a rich experience in terms of global media and communication, to please summarize the discussions that have been happening so far. So over to you, sir.
Greetings from the state of North Carolina. I have very much enjoyed the discussions, presentations today. I would like to express my appreciation to the organizers of this global conference and your kind invitation. So I had the pleasure of spending a few days at Amity University in Dubai, and was quite impressed with its facilities and innovative programs. Amity is certainly on the move and is making a difference, not only in India, but also internationally. And while at Dubai, I had the pleasure of meeting Professor Marut Bisht and also Dr. Fazil Malik. I think he is now Vice Chancellor or Chancellor of that university. Forward-looking, and it is indeed a pleasure to be associated with you. So, and thanks to the leadership of Amity University. In addition to that, in the past 10 years at least, I have visited India many times, and we have organized several conferences, I think 4 of the Global Communication Association conference. We were supposed to have another conference this year at lovely university in Punjab, but because of the COVID, we had to postpone that. So hopefully at some point we will have a conference at Amity as well. So as you know, today the digital media are hijacking our attention, especially the attention of our students and children. They are preoccupied with these smartphones and tablets and so on. And the internet has become a river of information that continues to flow faster and faster. And the popular sites and the popular talk is TikTok. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and etc. consume many hours of our daily lives. And reportedly, on the average, students spend about 4 hours with the social media daily. And that is more than they spend studying in general. So collectively, artificial intelligence, social media, robotics, and automation are reshaping our lives and industries nationally and globally, and that's the case in the US, India, Europe, and elsewhere. And the industry boundaries have changed and become global. So globalization is a fact of life. There are some who are against globalization and talk about deglobalization. In my view, we are beyond that point, and we cannot return to the era of pre-globalization. So in the process, because of globalization, industry boundaries have changed and become global. So the physical boundaries are not as important as before the internet and globalization. Information economy has become a reality. Information is a commodity, and it is sold. It is probably the most important part of the economy today. As we have experienced the COVID pandemic, with its many variants, it seems it's not going to leave us alone. We hear about new variations and has become a global challenge. So from my perspective, the COVID-19 pandemic has illustrated that regardless of our race, religion, and nationality, gender, and political ideology, we are globally interconnected and consequently impacted in a similar fashion. And we have experienced that all over the world. The pandemic has turned our world upside down by drastically shattering economies, human interactions, livelihoods, chain stores, chain supplies, restaurants, educational institutions, governmental institutions, and has forced us to change and modify our ways of life. Likewise, our lives, our relationships, and pre-corona daily routines have been drastically changed. As it might be, in your case, for the past 2 years at least, all of us, most of us teaching, have been confined to our homes and computers, and in fact, I'm zoomed out. Too many Zoom meetings, and it's been good for Zoom, but not good for us and relationships with our students and our colleagues. So in our highly interconnected digital environment, at some point in the future, and this is something that we need to take into consideration, we might be confronted with an electronic virus that could potentially disrupt the communication and economies of the world. And by that, I mean a global cyber pandemic or a global cyber attack. So when the energy is not available to run the zeros and ones of the communication technologies, all digitized information and real-time global connections may be lost, perhaps forever. Thus, what we will do? Do we have a plan? Have we considered alternatives? That would be similar to the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. It arrived and we were not prepared. That may arrive, we may not be prepared. So preparation is the key. And I think in this process, all educational institutions play a crucial role. And I listened to Dr. Sam Petroda's passionate message and agree with many of his comments. We are facing many challenges and many problems, and we are in pain regardless of where we live. We are confronting different issues, but many of them are similar globally. So my point is, let us learn the lessons of COVID-19 by modifying our actions, behaviors, and attitudes. and that means change. And normally humans do not change easily. It takes time. And let us chart together a better, a more harmonious future for ourselves and future generations. A better future for the earth and humanity requires global cooperation based on mutual respect and recognizing boundaries of nation states. And it is unfortunate what we are witnessing globally. Conflicts, wars continue. And clearly, polarization and conflict are not conducive to a better future. They're obstacles. And unfortunately, we see divisions. We see countries polarized, and that is the case in the US and other parts of the world, and that is unfortunate. Something has to be done. Again, my opinion is the best option is education, teaching the young people about these issues and guiding them as to how they should navigate and how and why they should care about what is happening regionally, nationally, globally. So, these are broad topics and we can spend a lot of time discussing them. But we can, I think, we can and should rise to do better than before. And what's progress? How do we define it, right? We can and should rise to do better than before by learning the lessons of human history. Whether we like it or not, one thing is certain: tomorrow will be much different from today. And with that, I thank you and for your attention. I hope we can meet in person at some point in the future. And I wish you all the best and hope the educational institutions like Amity and major universities in the US, India, Europe, Australia, and China, and elsewhere can lead on these global issues and come up with a strategy. What do we need to do to change course? That's a big question.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for this insightful lecture. Indeed, on the face of uncertainty, there are things to be worried of, but also, as you said, that cooperation is the key. So we value your inputs, and with this, we invite Dr. Sailesh Upreti for his concluding remarks, and we will come to the end of this panel then. Over to you, Dr. Upreti.
Thank you, Dr. Beast. Very humbled and thankful to Amity for organizing this knowledge sharing podium. You already heard from one of the best knowledge sources about the digital transformation and the global changes, as well as what it means for India and the US. I'm not sure what else I can add to that. However, I do want to share my views briefly on the post-pandemic challenges, as well as opportunities in clean energy area, which is my area. And Amity is doing a lot of work in that space as well. In my limited career so far, I spent half of it in the academia, and the rest as an entrepreneur in the business world. So I kind of have learned the flavor from both sides and how the collaborative industrial as well as university collaborations can change a lot of things in our day-to-day life. And also from my personal experience, I see COVID has certainly changed the perception of the people. It has changed how we feel when we waste food, when we keep our water taps on unattended, when we leave our light bulbs on for a long time for no reasons. So some of these changes were very much needed to create a better place to live. And dirty energy, which has been part of our life, I would say, for many decades, whether it's in the form of diesel or coal, has also started affecting other areas. Best example is even the education system. We had to shut down schools in Delhi for the reason known to us. So it's our common responsibility to think green and develop a lifestyle that focuses on cleaner and greener earth. My company C4V and IM3 New York has been taking lead in transforming some of these green energy domains, and obviously opportunities are humongous. US and India has very common, I would say, problem there. Both the countries, while the solar energy, wind, and the electric transport has been the key focus for last many years, has still, I would say, a lot to catch up. And I see huge. That's one of the big challenge, how to adopt new obviously technologies that will affect how we drive our next vehicle, or how we use the energy in our offices and homes that can be clean and green. I think that challenge also creates lots of opportunities for scientists, for business community, for schools, create workforce knowledge base that will eventually lead and transform this to create a better place that we all imagine to live in. With that limited thought, I feel energy storage, which is going to be a critical component, green and clean batteries that will transform how we drive from our home to office and how we use the electricity in our offices and home, going to create a plethora of opportunities. And my message to the young audience here is to think about how you individually, while using that energy, can contribute, but also maybe as scientists or entrepreneurs, create business opportunities, not only for two countries in a collaborative manner, but also for a greener and global horizon. So with that, I know we are probably running late, so I won't be able to add more. However, I feel really happy to be part of this knowledge sharing podium this morning. So over to you, Dr. Best.
Thank you very much, Dr. Preeti. Indeed, this was an extremely short remark by you, but we are aware of how you wish to contribute to the growth of MET vis-a-vis your organization. Honorable Chancellor, sir, you'll be happy to know that Dr. Preeti is, he has agreed in principle to offer the summer internship to our students who visit New York, because he is based in New York, and he has been recently bagging a couple of accolades over there for his.
So Preeti has done a wonderful job in the area of lithium-ion batteries and creating futuristic technologies for energy storage. Dr. Preeti, I feel proud of it. Well done.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, we come to an end. Though there are a lot of questions that have been asked by our campuses, throughout the world, and there are students who are just popping in so many queries. But due to the paucity of time, we bring it to a closure, to a meaningful closure indeed. And I would request Honorable Chancellor, sir, respected Group Vice Chancellor, sir, Abhay Chauhan, sir, and Professor Bhavna Kumar, ma'am, to please join us for the felicitations of our guests. We will now be proceeding with the award ceremony. Amity is proud to confer upon Professor Gurpreet Dhillon the Amity Global Academic Excellence Award. Professor Dhillon is a Farrington Professor of IT and Decision Sciences at the University of North Texas. We are also proud to confer upon Professor Supriya Chakravarty, Director, Lowell Center for Space Science and Technology, University of Massachusetts, Lowell, the Amity Global Academic Excellence Award. So we request you to please accept this honor. Going further, we are also proud to confer upon Professor Richard P. Steele, the Chancellor Professor, UMass Law School, Boston, the Amity Global Academic Excellence Award. It was indeed worthwhile listening to your great thoughts and insight. Amity is also proud to honor Professor Yaya R. Kamalipur, the Professor of Media and Global Communications, former chair of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, North Carolina A&T State University, the Amity Global Academic Excellence Award. In absentia, we are also proud to confer the Amity Global Academic Excellence Award on Professor Poonam Anand-Keller, Senior Associate Dean for Advancement at Dartmouth. Due to some personal commitments, she could not be part of this panel, but she has sent her video acceptance and message, which will be relayed during the course of this conference. Last but never the least, as we come to the closure, Amity has always believed in the philosophy of integrating industry alongside the academic input, and we are proud to confer upon Dr. Sailesh Upreti, founder and chairman, IM3NY New York, the Amity Corporate Excellence Award. Although we wished it never ended, and there was so much to learn and so much to imbibe and ponder upon, but as they say, all good things do come to an end. I would request our Honorable Group Vice Chancellor, sir, to give his concluding remarks and propose the vote of thanks.
Maru, let it be a privilege of US campus. And,
okay, sir.
And we have Mr. Abhay Chauhan. I would request him that if he can very briefly say a few things at the end, and then Professor Kevin to give vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. I think keeping with time, I will keep this very short. It has been an absolutely amazing, exciting, and invigorating panel discussion. There have been many titans of academia and industry who have joined us today, and we are honored, and it was a pleasure. And we would like to thank all of you.
Thank you very much, sir. Indeed, we are blessed to have your company with us, and we saw that throughout you were just doing the best. So thanks a lot, sir. And I would request Mr. Kevin McCrudden now, please, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so very much for allowing me to enjoy this event. Just so much knowledge, so much information. Dr. Singh, so nice to see you again. Dr. Chauhan, Professor Steele, you had suggested that maybe we have an event in New York. You're all welcome here. You're all welcome to our New York campus. Beautiful 170-acre campus here on the South Shore of Long Island. The many thoughts that were shared today are truly inspiring. As America's Chief Motivation Officer, I am inspired by the incredible messages that were shared today, and certainly in light of Dr. Chauhan's vision. And all too often we hear people that are referred to as visionaries, but he truly is a visionary, and his vision of a global institution, educational institution, is alive and well. And I think it is obviously in very good hands based on the folks that were participating today and your brilliant thoughts. So on behalf of my colleague, Savita Arora, who is traveling today back to India, from Amity New York campus, we look forward to having you all at the Amity New York campus, and we look forward to what comes next in the post-COVID environment. And it sounds like the world is in very good hands, not only from you as leaders, but also Dr. Singh, Dr. Chauhan, and the Amity family worldwide.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin. With your permission, respected Group Vice Chancellor, sir, may we now please close the session?
Chancellor is there, so take permission of Chancellor.
Yes, Dr. Maru, thank you. Great job. And I'm seeing that Professor Hamilton has stayed till the very end. A great appreciation, and thank you to all of you. Dr. Singh, we I think should close the session now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your permission, sir. May we please request Mobinji with a special thanks to the IT team and Sodi sir for this help.